Hey everyone, welcome to Foresight in 15. This is a fun show where we get to take on a hot topic in business today. I have the privilege of being your host. I'm Jill Kramer. I'm the Chief Marketing Communications Officer here at Accenture. And with me today is Chris Roark, who is our global lead for cost and productivity reinvention, a very important topic for our clients today. Today, we're going to focus on a recent piece of research we did on how productivity can become the ultimate competitive advantage in today's business landscape. We're going to do this in 15 minutes or less, and our goal here is to make sure that we offer a really quick but clear view of this research so you want to dive in even further. All right, Chris, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, so this report has a lot of important takeaways, but let's start today's discussion with what does it mean to use productivity as a competitive advantage in business today?
I think we have to start with just the reframing of what productivity is. This is no longer about cost cutting and efficiency solely as the purpose. This is about really creating competitive advantage. It's about having the capacity to invest, the ability to build new capabilities. And so our research, which was really extensive, it found that those that are leading in productivity are driving greater profit in revenue and innovation per employee than their peers. And so this is about taking areas like AI, like technology platforms, like the reskilling of the workforce, and reimagining what's possible and moving beyond traditional cost-cutting measures.
And Chris, there's no small win to be had here. This is a big deal. There's a gap between the companies who do this well and the companies who are challenged to have this view. And that gap is widening, correct?
It's getting very wide. And so if we were to look back over the past decade, 40% of our clients, of companies, they've not realized any productivity gains. More than 2/3 talk about productivity only in a cost-oriented manner. And so the companies that are really leaning in, the gap's widening. And those that are leading have widened that gap to 8% per year in productivity gains. And that's significant. Over a decade, that's 2.8 times the EBIT growth of their average peer.
Yeah, so there's not a lot of question of whether it's worth it to focus on this. And we know, because you and I have had this conversation with so many of our practitioners, that a lot of clients don't ask that question.
They don't.
But what you found out is there's a list of things you can do. This doesn't have to be overwhelming in terms of how you approach this. Tell us a little bit about that list.
Yeah, there's really 5 things that we found through the research. What we found the leaders doing is, first, they define productivity differently. They don't talk about cost efficiency. They talk more about returns. They talk more about the outputs. The second thing is that they're investing deliberately in growth. One of the things that really surprised us was that we found that the productivity leaders invest 2 times more per employee in technology than those that are laggards. And that's somewhat counterintuitive, but when you really think about it, they're investing to drive greater output from their employees. The third thing is they're embracing AI, and we talk about just the power of knowledge. And they're at the forefront of building AI into everything they do versus having it as adjacency. The fourth piece is really thinking about the human element, reskilling people, getting the management team very fluent on the power of productivity. And finally, they embrace change. We know so much that the organization's value comes from the middle of the organization. So they're unlocking it with a very deliberate change strategy that makes them successful.
Okay, so let's dive into a couple of those with a little bit more detail. I'm going to start with that point number 3. Talk to me about that role, especially of AI, but also the data that underpins it, that can really transform the business process and unlock that productivity.
So one of the things that we found is there's a different equation for value creation from productivity leaders. Yes, they look at the cost inputs and how do they manage the consumption of those inputs. And they do also look at efficiencies and how do they use technologies to simplify processes, to automate them, to do more quickly. But the power of AI, the real breakthrough, is the impact to knowledge and how it allows things to be done better. and with more accuracy and a better experience. And so that last piece is the Gen AI multiplier, which is all about really the breakthrough potential of the organization. The things that we find that the leaders are doing is that first, they're very intentional in the strategy. What they're doing is an enterprise level Gen AI strategy. The second piece is they understand it's a journey, that they need to learn through doing, that they have to test and create the culture and the space for the organization to adopt AI. And the last piece is they're being very responsible with AI. They're making sure as they go through that they have very clear principles on how they're going to apply AI and what are the potential adverse consequences of this, which at the end of the day allows you to go a lot faster by having that governance in place up front.
So it's a big mindset shift. It starts with what are you trying to accomplish in the first place? And are you asking the right questions? And then the how you go about it. So let's talk about the human side of this, which was really number 4 and 5, but I'm going to dive into this. We know that people are key to changing productivity, and that belief, that understanding that, and really taking people with you is critical. So what do organizations need to do to bring people with them on this journey, which we've established is quite different?
It's quite different. I think when we look at what really allows organizations to break through, it starts with the management mindset. And we hear a lot of organizations talk about board and management fluency around AI and the potential of it. But is it a real strategic priority for the organization? Are they investing at the very top of the organization to create the capacity and the capability to use AI? Because that creates a safe space for people to innovate throughout the organization. And so that's really the first piece. The second element is a real investment in skilling. The reality is that a lot of the work that organizations do today can be very transactional. And so in order to get the operational strategic work to be powered by AI, we have to skill the workforce differently. And that's not just the corporate workforce. It's so much of the front line, the individuals that are working out in the fields and stores, the healthcare workers that are serving patients, the manufacturer workers. How do we allow them to have a greater impact? And truthfully, when we do that, it actually creates a more fulfilling and rewarding employee value proposition. And so it drives retention, it attracts talent. The last piece is what they're measuring and how they're really measuring the success of that adoption. And so when you put those 3 pieces together, you get to a very different talent equation in the context of productivity.
Yeah, and I don't think you can understate that last point about measuring, especially when it comes to people and are they with you? Are they understanding? And so I'm thrilled you mentioned that. Chris, I always ask a couple of questions when folks join us on Foresight in 15. And one of them is that I find that, a lot of times experienced practitioners like yourself, you go in, you have a hypothesis, something you're excited to research, but you also kind of think where things are going to net out. What surprised you when you really dove into the output of this research project?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. The emphasis on technology investment really surprised me because I think for a long time we've talked about how to optimize technology, and what this really said is the companies that are furthest ahead on the productivity curve are investing more. And what we find is for every dollar that they invest broadly, they get $1.3 of revenue growth. And so the math works, but it was counterintuitive in a lot of ways for me. The second piece that surprised me is we had a hypothesis that there were certain industries, financial services, media, that were more at the forefront of technology adoption. And that proved out to be true in a lot of ways. But there were really clear productivity leaders in every single industry. And the magnitude of the gap was actually quite consistent. And so that was a surprising insight for us. And yes, different industries will approach productivity in different ways. But I'll give a great example in the oil and gas space where we're seeing clients that are using Gen AI to really evaluate the performance of assets, the way they think about capital planning. And it's completely disrupting the level of integrity in a lot of ways that can go into those choices, because you're going from intuition to a remarkable fact base. We saw in the highly engineered space for automotive, the way that they're sharing the learnings of early R&D innovations. And I spend a lot of time in personal care. We're finding the way that the companies are actually shortening the life cycle of product development, not by days and weeks, but going from 3 quarters to a single quarter in the way they're launching products. And so their breakthrough innovations, for lack of a better word, there coming from the application of AI to rethink productivity.
And one of my last favorite questions, and it makes me happy to close out this segment on this one because it is my favorite, is what gives you hope? So if you think about that gap, we started by talking about just how broad that gap was, but the ability to get clients, companies, industries on the right side of that gap. What gives you hope? What did you learn in this that makes you believe more companies can get on that correct side?
What gives me hope, I'm an optimist in general, but what gives me hope is I think this is about mindsets. And I think that the way technology has matured over the past 5 years, it allows step changes in performance. It's not about incrementality. And so to me, this is a choice to want to lean in and be a productivity leader. And that's not the right choice for every company, to be clear. But when a company wants to lead at the forefront of productivity at an enterprise level or in a part of the value chain, the barriers to achieving that are much lower than they've ever been. So I think that's a really exciting opportunity for our clients.
I do too. And, part of why we do this is because we want people to realize this is something, I got a quick snippet. Thank you. You made it easy for me to learn. I want to dive in. So I want to have you state that equation one more time because it's clever and I think it's memorable. Can you do that for us one more time?
I will. So when we think about the productivity equation, it's your cost inputs is your first element. The second piece is around the efficiency coefficient. And the last piece is around the Gen AI multiplier. Manage what goes in, do it better and faster, and then really amplify the way you apply knowledge in everything you do.
All right. I love that. And I hope more people want to learn more about that equation. Chris Roark, thank you so much for being with us on Foresight in 15. And thanks to all of you for being with us as well. We look forward to seeing you here again soon.
Thanks for having me.